I was very lucky that I'd go over there on Sunday morning as we always had a big family dinner and she prepared it. And we would talk about the old country and different stories. So she was like my balance, where I came from a household where 6 days a week I listened to people fight about money. And this one day a week, this person who had way less than my parents did. And she and my grandfather never fought about money. She just felt that whatever we need, we'll be able to create. She had that kind of confidence in herself. Mm-hmm. And when she saw somebody that was doing better than her, like that had more than her, she would bless them because she had that abundance mentality. She had no fear about being able to create. And that to me was such a lesson, because anyone that I've met along the way, and I've studied this for many years, but the folks that are successful are the ones that have an abundance mentality with money.
Welcome to the Rich, Fit, and Happy podcast. I'm Crystal O'Connor, where we want to take you from drab to fab in this beautiful life. Let's go. Hello. This is Crystal. I'm with Rich, Fit, and Happy. This is for Money Monday, by the way. And I brought you someone that is a financial expert. And I love that she's a woman because we women have many different mindsets around money. I think just humans in general do. But I've noticed working with women over the years that women certainly have a variety of different mindsets. And she's going to help us with that, because overcoming your money mindset, I think, is one of the biggest hurdles, and it makes it just easier to bring in more income in your business. So I brought on Therese Nicholas. She's the president and founder of the Wealth Coach for Women. She has on Amazon 3 books. One is an ebook. We're going to talk about that today. And we're going to talk about money mindset first to start us off. Therese, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Crystal.
So what is your money mindset? Let's start there.
My money mindset has actually evolved over the years. And growing up, I had a very limited money mindset. And the reason for that is my parents fought constantly over money. So as a little kid, especially for most children before the age of 8, we see things in black and white. There's like no gray area. There's no sorting things out. It's either it is or it isn't. And I felt that money must be this awful thing because people fight over it. Now, complete contrast, I was blessed by my paternal grandmother, who had an abundance mindset. She grew up in Sicily, very, very poor. I mean, if you looked up dirt poor, you'd probably see her picture. Though she was very clean, her house was always spotless. But she grew up, they were like serfs to the land. They were almost like slaves, my grandparents. Wow. And she knew that the only way that her family would progress is to come to the United States. And when my grandfather wanted to marry her, she gave him 2 ultimatums. She said, I will marry you as long as you take me to America and let me manage the money. And he agreed.
So she had something in her that she knew she wanted more, and she was going to go get it.
Exactly. You've got it. And she was the most humble, low-key, gentle person you'd ever want to meet. But inside of all of that was a dynamo. Mm-hmm. And I was so blessed to have that as a role model. So her mindset around money, even though she didn't have any, was she felt very confident that she could always produce whatever she needed. Mm-hmm. And she shared that with me. I was very lucky that I'd go over there on Sunday morning as we always had a big family dinner, and she prepared it. And we would talk about the old country and different stories. So she was like my balance, where I came from a household where 6 days a week I listened to people fight about money. And this one day a week, this person who had way less than my parents did. And she and my grandfather never fought about money. She just felt that whatever we need, we'll be able to create. She had that kind of confidence in herself. Mm-hmm. And when she saw somebody that was doing better than her, like that had more than her, she would bless them because she had that abundance mentality. She had no fear about being able to create. And that to me was such a lesson, because anyone that I've met along the way, and I've studied this for many years, but the folks that are successful are the ones that have an abundance mentality with money. They don't take it personally. They don't think it's a tool that you use every day. Mm-hmm. It's not something that has any emotion attached to it. where my parents' money was very emotional. It was a power struggle.
So a power struggle. Did your mom work outside of the home?
No,
Okay.
no, she did not. And my father didn't want her to.
So this grandmother from Sicily, was it your mom's mom?
No, my dad's mom.
Okay. So I wonder what it was about your grandmother's mindset that didn't pass on to your dad.
I don't know. That's the $1,000,000 question.
Okay. So they fought over money and it seemed like a power struggle, but you feel like maybe you got a little bit of something from your grandma in your
I
mindset.
got a lot from my grandmother.
Yeah.
I did. And anytime I struggled with money, anytime I was in a, maybe living hand to mouth or, struggling living paycheck to paycheck, which I spent, a good part of my adult life doing, it didn't bother me. I mean, it isn't that it didn't bother me like, oh, who cares? I didn't worry about it. I've never worried about money.
Okay.
And I think that was because of my grandmother, that I felt confident that I will be able to create what I need. I might not have a lot extra, but I'll always be able to create what I need. And I got that from her. And then as I developed and years went on, I was able to create more than what I needed.
Yeah. And that probably made you take note of the emotions attached to abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset.
You've got it. Exactly. Okay. And anyone that I saw that had that negative attitude, that scarcity, that jealousy when somebody has more than them, all they did was struggle because they didn't manage what they had well. They didn't respect it. And I saw it with my father in particular. My father could spend money like you would not believe, and yet he would complain about my mother. My mother's spending was, she had 6 children. She bought all the clothes. She bought all the food. She did all the things that you have to do to run a household, and he didn't give her a lot to work with. And he didn't appreciate that.
Yeah.
That she was able to do all the things that she did on a shoestring. All he saw was, the money leaving the checkbook, but not give me a breakdown of how much went to food or how much went to clothes or anything like that. It was just, oh, it's not there.
So when did you actually start your company called The Wealth Coach for Women?
I started this company in 2016. Prior to that, I worked for other firms, but I always had a strong sense of helping women. I saw along my path, women really needed the most help, and I felt that the industry was really ignoring them.
What industry?
The financial services industry.
Financial services. Okay. So you created programs. You have 2 or 3 different programs to choose from. So are they on different income levels? How did you differentiate these two? Tell me about the first program you started and the one that, or I'm assuming the first one you started is the one that you still have, or one of them at least that you still have.
No, the first program that I started was way back when I started doing financial planning. And I recognized that the financial planning tools that we were given were really insurance driven. Like they were designed so that you'd show people they didn't have enough insurance and sell them insurance and everyone was happy. Right? So I said, that's wrong. And this is like more than 20 years ago. And I created a program that in that very beginning stage of, why don't we take this tool and use it as a teaching tool to show people how to really manage money. And not only manage money, but developed a healthy mindset around money. So they're inspired to manage money. They don't keep letting that little itty bitty committee in their head keep telling them that they live paycheck to paycheck or worse, or, money flies out of my hand. The more you tell yourself that, the more that becomes your reality. So my process morphed into a coaching program more than a financial planning program. And I went through the Jack Canfield Success Principles training program. So I learned life coaching from him, and I took those concepts, merged it with the financial planning concepts, and came up with wealth coaching.
Oh, I like it. And I love Jack Canfield. So I don't know right off the top of my head what some of his principles are, but you took those principles, you put them into your program. So when you say that you're a financial planner or was a financial planner, you're still managing people's money, right?
No, I don't manage assets anymore.
You just teach them basically how to become more. Do you teach them how to become more independent with managing their money and working with financial planners, or just managing all of their money themselves?
Well, it's a combination. It really depends on the individual. A lot of the folks that I work with, had assets that were tied up in their 401k. So they weren't necessarily working with an outside financial advisor. They were just, their money was all tied up in their company plan. So I would help them understand how much they should be putting into that plan and how to allocate it. But I wasn't managing it for them. I was guiding them on what to do with it.
Yeah.
The thing that I really focus on is helping them understand what it is that they really want out of life and what that's going to cost. So once they have that clarity, then they can now be inspired to save towards that. I found that when people don't have a target, money tends to just evaporate because they don't really care. You know, it's like, oh, who cares? I'm not saving.
So it's like they're living in the moment instead of striving for something.
Correct, because they have nothing to strive for, or they don't see what they're striving for.
Right. Okay. So when you are helping them manage their own money, do you have a preference over stocks, insurance? I know life insurance can be. I know it's not supposed to be looked at as an investment, but sometimes it is. I've heard little techniques that people use, but let's break down maybe some modules or some pieces from one of your courses that you actually teach.
Okay, so the course that I have, that's what I do is I created an online program. So for somebody who either doesn't want to talk to a financial advisor because maybe there's a lot of shame around money, but they know they need to straighten out a few things, or somebody that doesn't feel like they can afford to hire a financial advisor, I created a DIY program. And it's called 6 Weeks to Financial Freedom. It's an online that they can access at any time. And it has 6 modules to it. One of the modules is your money mindset. So in that module, we do a deep dive into where your money story is coming from. And we have some techniques and tools to help them reverse engineer that so that they have a healthier one.
Yeah, I bet that's really powerful.
It is. When people actually do the work, I know it literally changed my life. When I went through, in order to be certified as a money coach, I had to go through the coaching process. And that's where I discovered all of my hidden messaging that had to do with my father and things that I had forgotten.
Mhm.
You know, life goes on, you forget things. And in going through it, just like pulled everything forward. And I thought, oh, now I get why I have that like insecurity or that fear or whatever it might be. One of my issues, and I don't mind sharing this with the audience, I mean, this was like getting hit by a baseball bat when I discovered this piece. And it was that as a kid growing up, as I told you, my parents fought all the time about money. So I had this fear that if you had money, somebody was going to take it away from you. That somehow I developed that mindset. And when I was a kid, I was working with my father. He had his own business and he paid me very little. And his thing was, oh, someday this business will be yours, which it never was. So I thought, okay, right there, I'm not worthy. You know, so I had like negative worth issues that built from that. And then there was an incident that one of his clients had given him, instead of giving him like a cash tip, she bought him a really nice bottle of wine and gave him that as a gift, which was nice. So he brought that home and like gave everybody a little glass of the wine, and he and my mother, you know, finished the rest of the bottle. So the next time I saw the client, not thinking, I just said, oh, that was really a nice gesture, you know, getting that wine. We really enjoyed it. And for some reason, my father took real offense to that. I mean, he went ballistic. How dare you? Like, that was mine. I chose to share it. And who are you to say thank you like it was yours?
Wow.
And then he said to me, I think from now on, I'm going to take away all your tips.
Okay. So he kind of had a selfish problem or something going on there.
Oh, he had a lot of issues there. And, you know, I think when he said that, that was a trigger that, oh, if I accumulate too much or somebody knows that I've accumulated too much, he's going to come along and take it away from me. And that prevented me from really developing like I don't want to say my value, but getting compensated in the way that I deserve to be compensated. I held back. And once I went through that coaching process and I could see that, I said, this is what happens. It's like I get to a certain point and I stop. It's like I sabotage myself. And it was because of that messaging that I had from when I was a child.
Okay, so what did you do to change it?
I'm so glad you asked. There are exercises. So in our head, I called it the itty bitty committee. And that subconscious limiting belief messaging is like a tape recorder running all the time. So in order to change that, you have to rewrite the tape. You've got to rewrite the script. So what I do are affirmations, and the affirmation model is very simple. It may sound lengthy, but it's really simple, and there's words in it that are key. So it starts off with I am, which is very powerful, so happy and grateful. So when you say those things, your endorphins go up. It's like everything, it stimulates a lot of good juju when you say that. So I am so happy and grateful now that, so you're always talking in the present tense, I am blank. So whatever you want that blank to be. So in my case, it's I am so happy and grateful now that I know how to create more than enough with ease and grace.
And this is what changed your mindset.
Yeah.
And how long do you feel like you had to do this mantra or affirmation?
I think it took me 30 days. And
Wow.
anytime I felt like that little slipping backwards, like you'd have that negative thought, you have to train yourself to stop, to just hit pause, like, no, I'm not going there. And you replace it with the positive one. And that's a habit that you have to build. And it's not a tough one, but it's what it's doing, Crystal, is it's making you conscious of the unconscious. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And they say your subconscious is running your mind.
More than 90%.
More than 90%. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
More than 90% of your outcome in your life is due to your subconscious.
So what is maybe a story or an example of a client that you've worked with that kind of broke past that and feel like that understanding her money story and overcoming it changed everything for her?
Oh, I've got a bunch of them, but I have one that's really, it's hard for me to say without crying. Okay. So this woman.
You can do it? Do you need to get a tissue?
I've got a box right next to me. So if I need one, I'll grab one, but thank you. This woman came to me. She was around 42 at the time when we started working together. And she showed up broken. I think that's the only way I can describe it. Sweet, kind, compassionate, but you could see in her eyes that she was like a broken spirit. And we talked for a long time, and I went through the money coaching process with her. And prior to her hiring me, I really wanted to be certain that she had what it took to do the work, because paying me isn't the answer. You have to be committed to doing the exercises. And she said, I cannot go on like this anymore. And I said, well, what does that mean? She said, I have so much debt. It's ridiculous. I don't even know how I accumulated all this debt. She's driving a broken down car. Her job was a disaster. I mean, it was just like one thing after the other. So we peeled back the layers and discovered that a lot of this was triggered by her parents, who were devoutly religious, but to the point where they would give to like the church or charities or whatever, and yet they didn't have enough money to buy food. And that disturbed her. That triggered her. That for some reason was a trigger for her. So she gets married a disaster. He left her with a 2-year-old. So now she has to raise this 2-year-old by herself. Didn't have that great of a job. Story goes on and on. She starts accumulating debt. She's like really in financial trouble. She comes to me. So we peel back all the layers of the onion to discover the root of the problem. And when we discovered what the root of the problem was and her self-worth issues, I started doing those affirmation exercises with her to help her reverse that. And it took a lot, but she was determined. So one of the areas that we discovered was a real sticking point for her was she was making horrible money. And she had a good job. I mean, she had credentials where she should have been making more, but it's self-worth. And I kept telling her, where I work with a lot of women, I work with a lot of people in her profession. And I said, I really think you should be making twice what you're making. I said, I'm just so convinced of it. It's like ridiculous. And she said to me, well, I'd rather walk down the street naked than look for another job.
She really liked her job.
No, she didn't. She hated it, but it was self-worth. It was putting herself out there. It was all that fear.
Okay.
So I did a series of exercises with her to walk her through an interview process, pretend we're doing an interview. We did a lot of like mock stuff, and that helped build her confidence. And I worked with her like once a week. We'd get together after work and I'd do these exercises with her. And then I said, now we're going to go online and we're going to look for a job. And I found a company that I knew of. I had already done the work beforehand, so she didn't know that, but I said, we're going to go on this website. And there were 21 openings in her field. And I said, we're going to apply. You apply right online. And I said, I can feel that one of those jobs at least is going to have your name on it. Well, sure enough, she got the interview. Now she's freaking out because she has to go on an interview. And I said, no, we're going to take care of this. We've got this. So I pretended I was the interviewer. And I said, these are the top 10 questions that an interviewer will ask. I'm going to ask you these questions. And I want you to really be solid with your answers. Be like, just convinced so that you're convincing. And she went on the interview. They asked her 8 out of those 10 questions. So she had practiced them so many times that she was very comfortable. Bottom line, she got the job. She doubled her income.
And she was probably just blown away by that.
She was completely blown away. So then, we're still working together. It gets to the end of the year. She came in to show me her W-2. And she showed me, she just walked in. She said, I got something to show you. She showed me the year before and the current one. And she said to me, this should have your name on it, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have this. And I said, no, I'm just driving the bus. You made the choice to get on, and you didn't get off until you were ready, and you did the work. You could pay me all day long, but if you're not willing to do the work, nothing is going to change, and you were willing. And every time we get together, when she does this exercise and she comes in with her W-2, she comes in with her 401k and all the other things. So her net worth has gone up exponentially. She's saving regularly. Her debt's gone. She's got a much better job. But you want to know what the best part of all of this was?
What?
She was in the break room and there was this coworker who made a very snarky, snide remark to her. And she turned and she said to her, that wasn't a kind thing to say. Why would you say that to me? And the woman said to her, oh, you're just way too sensitive. And she turned back and she said, no, I think the problem is that you're way too insensitive. And I don't want to hear you talk to me or anyone else like that again. And with that, the other woman turned in a huff and left. And she told me this story. And she said, I have never stuck up for myself ever. And I'm almost 50 years old. And I said, why do you think you stuck up for yourself? And she said, I think having a paycheck that reflects my worth has helped me with my self-worth. And I said, well, there's a direct correlation between your self-worth and your net worth. And you just proved it.
So it's really just all in your mind.
It is. It's all in your head. So you change your mind, you change your results. But often it's hard to do it by yourself.
I don't think it really matters what age you are either.
It doesn't.
I mean, it might take some doing because you've created it. If a person is a little bit older, they've created a habit. But I also was thinking that, what I know about the neurology of the brain and new research that proves that your brain, they can take a picture of it and actually see that your thoughts affect your brain. And
absolutely.
Sometimes those neural pathways are pretty deep,
yes,
with thoughts, certain thoughts. So what is your toughest case? With that being said, what is like your toughest case?
My toughest case was a family. And I think this is why I switched to working with women alone. Well, the wife was a spendaholic. She literally could not hold on to money. It was like it was on fire. And she had, not that her husband was any bargain either, but she had like all the, LV purses and the this and the that. I mean, she had more stuff than you can shake a stick at. And they would do crazy things. Like one year they had a Christmas Eve party where they hired a circus to perform on their front lawn. We're in the Northeast. Who the heck hires anybody to do anything on your front lawn in December?
So what was this attached to, I wonder?
It was attached to showing off. Like they wanted to
It
show,
sounds
like, oh, yeah, we're so well off. We're doing all these nutty things. Well, they
uh-huh.
were as broke as they come, to the point where they kept like refinancing their house to pay
Mhm,
off credit cards. And that was like in 07, 08, like around that time. Well, they
mhm.
got to the point where they were so underwater with their house that they couldn't do anything.
Wow.
And I was trying to educate them on their spending and the frivolous spending and all of that. And they just didn't want to hear it. So one day the husband came in and he had this shoebox, like a really big shoebox filled with receipts. And he literally threw it at me. Here, this is what we're paying you to fix. And I looked at it and said, nobody treats me like that. Picked up the box, handed it back to him. And I said, no, that's not what you hired me for. You didn't hire me to be a punching bag. And I pointed to the door, gave him his money back, and sent them on their way.
So there are people that you won't work with because
Yes,
of your own self-esteem. That's good. And that makes your life easier. And he probably would have been a real tough case to even help because it didn't sound like he wanted to help himself.
that's exactly right. So that's why I like to emphasize with people
Yeah.
to be willing to do the work. They don't give me a magic wand in a crystal ball. Those are tools that I just don't have. And I'm not a therapist.
Mhm.
So you have to show up ready and willing to work. I know I can guide anyone that wants to be guided. There
Mhm.
isn't a money problem that I have come across that I can't come up with a solution one way or the other, but you have to take the action. It may mean a sacrifice. It may mean you have to do something differently, because if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results. If you want different results, we have to do things differently. I
Yeah.
will tell you what those different things are. That I can do, and I'm happy to do that. And I will pull out of you what it is that you really want and show you how to get it. You have to do the work.
Mhm. So what is another topic or module in one of your programs? It sounds like mindset is the number one most important thing. And then what's the next?
The next one is a word that a lot of people don't like. It's called budgeting, how to create a budget. And I did actually create a whole mini program on that. And I call it intentional spending, because
Mm,
that's really what a budget is. It's guardrails. It's a roadmap and guardrails. And when you stop seeing a budget as something that's confining and constraining, and just like you're driving on the highway, you get guardrails on both sides. Doesn't mean you can't go on the highway. It just wants you to prevent you from going over the ditch. And that's what a budget does, in showing people how to estimate what their monthly expenses are for some discretionary spending. I mean, fixed things we know, and how to live within that. How much is a good number for your debt? Like what percentage of your income should be, like no more than that should be debt. How much should you be saving? What's a good savings ratio? All of those things. And understanding that the reason that we have these guidelines is so that if you have an emergency, you're not jumping out in front of a bus. If you want to do something really special, you want to have an epic experience, you've got the money to do it. You have the resources to do that. You want to do something, maybe I work with a lot of single, successful women. And one of the things that I come across a lot is that they want to leave deep footprints in the sand. Often they don't know what that really means. They don't know exactly, but they know they want to make a difference so that when they leave this earth, it meant something that they were here. So how do we fund that? How do we allocate resources for that? So I have a woman I've been working with, lovely woman, who had owned several pieces of real estate and made a decision that she was going to start selling some. She had them as rentals and all that. So, and she had a really good income, and her family was pretty well off. Most of the people in her family were like at the same income level that she was. So she's putting her estate plan together, and she said, there isn't one member of my immediate family that needs anything that I have. They're all very well off. I feel like I could be doing something differently. And I said, well, that's great. I said, do you have a cause or an issue or a problem in society that really means something to you for whatever reason, tugs on your heartstrings, that you would like to make a difference? And she said, absolutely. She said, battered women. I said, really? And she said, I come from a long history of battered women. I
Mhm.
never would have known that if she didn't tell me that.
Mhm.
So I said, what do you think about setting up a foundation that can support, helping battered women and
Mhm.
maybe getting your whole family involved? Well, with that, we were talking it out, going through the paces with it, what that would involve, and she just started to sob. And I said, why are you sobbing? She said, it's like a sense of relief because I guess this has always been in the back of my mind that this problem should be addressed. And I
Yeah.
didn't know how I could possibly do it. And I said, well, you don't have to do it alone. There are resources. You could either, contribute to an organization that already exists, or you could start your own and have your own parameters. And
Mhm.
that's what her and her family are in the process of doing.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So she is doing something good for her own money because of the
Yep.
foundation, but also, and probably growing it in a different way that she didn't even know possible. And being kind of like feeling like that she has because it runs like a 501(c)(3, right?
Right.
And then she feels like she has her own business and being more selective of who she can give the money to. I love that. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think the biggest thing for her was she works hard. She's been very successful. And sometimes, especially as women, we have to do 10 things at once. So you hop on the hamster wheel every day, you run like crazy, you jump off at the end of the day and you collapse and you get up the next day, do the same thing. And she felt like that's all she was doing was working.
Hmm.
And that there was like, what am I doing all this for? What am I working this hard
Yeah.
for? What am I accumulating all this money for? And now she has this sense of purpose. So now
Yes.
she
That's
knows
so
this is
important.
why God gave me the talent to be able to create this kind of
Mhm.
fortune, if you
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
and now I have a purpose for it. Now it's like re-energized her to get up and go to work every day.
Yes.
Things that she does. She's like coming out of now, instead of a sense of, oh, I have to go to work today, you come from a sense of joy that
Mm.
you are creating something wonderful for somebody else and that you're working to solve a big problem that is very near and dear to you. And you're getting your family involved. So now this is a family activity on
Yes.
top of everything else.
Yes. I love it. So, okay, your programs sound great. And oh, by the way, I don't know if I'd actually asked this the way I'm going to ask it now. Your two programs, there are two levels. Do they both have the money mindset piece? And are they different in that income has to do with some of it?
No,
With
income really doesn't have anything to do with any of it because at any income level, you can manage your money better.
okay.
So I have the online program that has a component that's the money mindset. I also have one that's just about, looking for ways that you might be wasting money. So that does not have the money mindset. The budget book that I mentioned, the intentional spending financial planner, does address it. There is a section in there that just mentions it. But I do have another one that goes into more depth. This is like a freebie that I give away just to get people started. When I work one-on-one coaching, it's all incorporated into that. And then I am in the process of developing a group coaching model, and it will be part of the group coaching program as well.
Okay. I love that. Okay, so let's leave our listeners with something. So, what are three things that people can do today to help break a bad money habit that they might have now?
Okay, well, one of the bad money habits that's really simple is go through your credit card statement or statements. Look for things that are on autopilot that you buy that you never use. So,
Mm.
for example, subscriptions. Like, maybe you subscribe to, say, I'm not putting down any organization, but let's say it's Netflix and you never use Netflix, or, a magazine or something to that effect. I do this 4 times a year, generally, especially right after the first of the year. I did that this year. I saved $300 a month. Just
Oh,
going through my credit card saying, oh, these different memberships or software tools or this, that, or the other, that's $3,600 in a year. And it took me like 15 minutes. That's a vacation. I mean, I can use $3,600 and go on a nice vacation.
that's true.
So I said that was a good use of my 15 minutes. So that's a number one thing, is really being mindful of what you're buying. And if you're buying something and you're not using it, then cancel it.
Okay.
Okay, that's number one. Number two is being aware of how much you're saving from your income. If you don't have a regular routine saving strategy, set one up. If you can set up saving on autopilot, whether it's funding a 401k at work, savings account at home, if you're on a payroll, if you're a W-2 employee, they normally have enough payroll slots that they can have money go to your checking account and a savings account without any problem. So that's second thing, is autopilot your savings. Third thing is understand if you have the capacity to fund a Roth IRA. So that is income level driven. If your income is over a certain amount, then you can't fund a Roth IRA. But if you can, highly recommend it, because I only expect income taxes to go up as we get older. And if you have the ability to create tax-free savings, I highly recommend it. Plan B, if you don't qualify for a Roth, would be to have an investment account that is what I call an individual. It's a non-IRA or non-retirement investment account. That would have capital gain associated with it if you sold something at a gain, but it's still more tax favorable than an IRA.
Oh, I love that.
The fourth thing would be really understanding how your IRA is going to impact you when you retire. Just get your arms around that. And if it's something that's confusing or kind of over your head, because I know the 401k thing has really been pushed on us since the late 80s when they started, I think having that understanding of everything is really important. And work with a professional, even if you can just get a free consult or something just to get you started. But don't be afraid to hire someone to help you, because you don't get many repeat opportunities to build wealth. And if you haven't been able to do it on your own, then get help to do it. Because if you could do it on your own, you would have done it by now.
Okay, really good stuff. And just from those three little things could make a huge difference. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I could imagine a person could make drastic changes in their financial outlook and their life, even their lifestyle, really quick by just doing one of your programs.
That's
I think
right.
everybody should be doing this, sooner the better. So did I hear you say you had a 6-week program? One of them was 6 week.
The personal coaching is 3 months.
3 months.
And when I set up the group coaching program, which is going to come out very soon, that'll be a 6-month program. So if anyone is interested in that, they can go on my website and they can shoot me an email and just say, put me on your waiting list.
Okay. Okay. So listeners, go to the show notes because I have all of her links, and your website is, and it'll also be in the show notes as well, but I'll just say it's thewealthcoachforwomen.net, correct?
Wealth Coach for Women. They don't have to use the word the.
I don't. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Wealthcoach.net. Okay, perfect. And they can find out more and they can get that free ebook and read that, right?
Right. I'm going to have two. Actually, I'm going to give you a series of freebies just for your listeners. So
good.
This is going to be a special toolkit that I'm going to put together for you, and I will send you the link for that. It's going to include the Money and Life Playbook, which goes through all the things that we've talked about. It's a great companion to the 6-week program. Actually, I built the 6-week program off of that.
Okay.
The other thing I'm going to give you is my free Find Money Without Sacrifice 5-day program. I'll give you that for free. And I'm also going to give you the financial freedom planner that I created. That's just a little quick. You don't need more than a 4th grade education, and you'd be able to create a really simple, super easy to use budget. That's something that you don't feel it's painful. So that's coming too.
Very nice. Okay, so that'll be in the show notes, that link that she's referring to for all your freebies. And, the dollar is shrinking, if that's even, I don't know how much smaller it could get at this point, but it's not getting any cheaper to live. It's pretty sad. I live in the Naples area and I belong to some Facebook groups, and I see the struggle and I hear the stories, and they just basically have to move or get a roommate. And it just, when I say they, I mean the younger people, even 20s and 30s, it's almost like not feasible for them to live in a lot of cities. And what they have to put down to rent an apartment or a condo is outrageous.
It is.
It's really
like
sad.
down in Boston too.
Yeah, it's really sad, but making some tweaks can give you a different outlook and give you some hope and get you into a better position so that you can get in, into the condo house, whether you want to own or rent. There's different opinions about that. But thank you so much for being here, Therese. And everyone go to the show notes and get started with her right away.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye, Therese.
Bye-bye.